This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Modern microfinance started with economist Muhammad Yunus. In the 1970s, he started what became the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. He and the bank shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for the idea of offering small loans to the poor to fight poverty. In 2010, reports of harmful micro-lending methods and corruption shook the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Yunus recently said in the New York Times that things got out of control. He noted that Andhra Pradesh had intensive lending activity at the time. We spoke to Giath Naqshbendi about changes in the world of microfinance. He is an expert in international business and teaches microfinance as a business model at the Kogod School of Business at American University. He says the government of India in certain states has started taking steps to guarantee that these institutions are operating under a strict system. Some experts have raised questions about whether micro-lending lifts women or poor families out of poverty. David Rudman is with the Center for Global Development, a research group in Washington. He says microloans do not do a good job fighting poverty. He says over $3 billion went into microcredit in 2010. But many lenders failed because of bad supervision or failure to repay loans. In one model, governments or non-governmental organizations give money to microcredit operations. Interest income is often used up by costs rather than helping other poor borrowers. But Giath Naqshbendi says that model is changing. Mr. Naqshbendi says sustainability is now a main goal. He says there has been a move in the last 5 or 6 years to find ways and means by which make these operations sustainable. In his words, sustainable means simply that, yes, we are going to rely on donations, but in the meantime, we are going to encourage these borrowers to save some of their money. Money from savings can then be used for new loans. Mr. Naqshbendi says private equity companies are looking closely at microfinance as an investment. New models are being developed to offer more than business loans. For example, educational loans and health insurance loans. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. For more business news for people learning English, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. When it comes to savings, no amount is too small. Microsaving is a growing part of the international movement of microfinance. The aim is to bring financial services to poor people. Modern microfinance started with Nobel Peace Prizing economist Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh. In the 1970s, he started small loan programs that would become the Grameen Bank. Currently, microcredit providers are in over 100 countries. Now, microfinance institutions are starting to offer other services, including savings plans. Recently, the nonprofit group Small Enterprise Education and Promotion held a conference in Washington. SEEP works with over 120 groups around the world in efforts to cut poverty. It does this by supporting small businesses. The goal is to help microfinance industry experts share ideas. One idea is called Financial Access at Birth, or FAB. It is designed to start each person with a financial citizenship at birth through a savings account connected to a bank deposit. Rosita Najmi is FAB's program director. She says FAB starts with financial inclusion, but creates other possibilities for inclusion across other sectors of health or education. Mobile or wireless technology will be important to many microfinance services. One meeting at the SEEP conference examined a mobile phone application for saving money. Debbie Dean of the Grameen Foundation says these efforts can also be extended to other financial services. They could include a combination of savings programs and money transfer programs. She says this could provide the most flexibility and convenience for savers. But offering savings, payments, and other services requires more training and controls. Rashid Bajwa leads Pakistan's largest microfinance organization. He says more training is needed. And he says microfinance institutions will need specialized people when they start offering savings programs. Small savings deposits add up, and interest over time makes them grow. This can have a surprising effect for savers and societies. Rashid Bajwa puts it this way. He says the amount of money that poor people have is imaginable. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Microsoft has fought legal battles with officials in Europe and the United States over competition in the personal computer market. But at the end of March, Microsoft accused Google of being anti-competitive. A complaint to the European Commission accused Google of unfairly controlling the internet search market in Europe. Google was already talking to the Commission about the issue and said it was happy to explain to anyone how its business works. But Google also faced other issues. Gmail users in China began reporting problems with Google's email service in late February. The problems came as news of the revolutions in the Arab world filled the internet, and there were online calls for protests in China. Google said the government was interfering with its email service. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Jiang Yu called those accusations unacceptable. But Google spokeswoman Jessica Powell said, "This is a government blockage, carefully designed to look like the problem is with Gmail." Google is the world leader in internet search. But in China, the biggest search engine is Baidu. And in late March, China's largest internet media company, Sina, dropped Google's search engine from its website. Sina said it would use its own technology. An estimated 450 million Chinese are online, about half of all internet users in Asia. In 2010, Google said a cyber attack from China had attempted to get information from the Gmail accounts of human rights activists. Google also expressed concerns about censorship. So, Google relocated its Chinese search engine from the mainland to Hong Kong. In March, Google also faced new problems at home. A federal judge in New York ruled against its plan to put millions of books online. Google wants to create a digital library of all the world's books. It reached a $125 million deal in 2008 with groups representing writers and publishers. Google agreed to create a system to pay copyright holders when their works are used online. But Judge Denny Chin rejected the proposed settlement. He said it would give Google monopoly control of the book search market. But he left open the possibility for a new plan. On a similar issue, Baidu in China said it removed almost 3 million documents from its library. Writers have complained that Baidu did not have permission for their works to appear on its document sharing site. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can read and listen to our programs about business and other subjects at voaspecialenglish.com. And click on the classroom for interactive exercises for English learners.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. Ethiopia is one of the last countries in Africa to permit mobile banking. Mobile banking has proved to be profitable in the developing world, where many people still do not use banks. Earlier this year, the World Bank reported that 75% of the world's poor are unbanked. That is about 2.5 billion people. Banking through mobile phones lets people take part in financial services even if they are not near a bank. Until recently, Ethiopia and Zimbabwe were the only nations in Africa without mobile money services. Now, that has changed for Ethiopia. Belcash and Mbir are mobile banking technology providers. They have been setting up mobile banking and mobile money services in Ethiopia for the past 3 years. The Dutch company Belcash is working in partnership with banks to provide easier access to financing through bank accounts. Ireland-based Mbir is a mobile money service that works with microfinance groups where no registration with a bank is needed. Ethiopia's mobile phone industry is young, and wireless service coverage in the country is not well developed. The pressure on the wireless network is expected to increase. In the past 4 years, the number of mobile users grew from 3 to 17 million, and Ethiopia's telecommunications provider, Ethio Telecom, expects that number to grow to 40 million in the next 3 years. The government closely controls Ethiopia's telecommunications market. That means there is only one provider. Competition is not permitted. The National Bank of Ethiopia recently finished a draft order on how mobile banking services should be structured. This comes as international companies have shown interest in starting mobile banking services. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The United States, the European Union, and Japan have called for talks with China under the dispute settlement system of the World Trade Organization. They want to discuss China's export limits on rare earth metals and 2 other minerals. WTO rules give talks 60 days to work. If they do not settle the dispute, a WTO panel can then be requested to help reach a settlement. Rare earth metals are used in the manufacture of almost every high-technology device, from mobile phones and computers to batteries for electric cars, and demand is only growing. China says it follows WTO rules in exporting the minerals. In 2010, China mined about 130,000 metric tons of rare earth metals. That was about 97% of world production. But information from China's government and the United States Geological Survey shows that China has reduced its export limits sharply in the past 2 years. Critics say this unfairly helps Chinese companies in the production of high-technology products. And they say it is a violation of World Trade Organization rules. President Obama explained why the United States was involved in the case. He said American manufacturers use rare earth materials to make high-tech products like advanced batteries. We want our companies building those products right here in America, he said. To do that, they need access to materials that China supplies. In the president's words, if China would simply let the market work on its own, we'd have no objections. But he said Chinese policies go against the very rules that China agreed to follow. China says it has restricted rare earth exports to meet needs at home. And it says its policy helps limit the environmental damage caused by overmining. China now faces a slowing economy. In February, the nation had its biggest trade deficit in 10 years. Experts expect China's central bank to increase the money supply to aid economic growth. At the same time, inflation remains a threat. On March 14th, Premier Wen Jiabao discussed the need for reform. China, in his words, must continue to strike a balance between maintaining steady and robust economic development, making economic structural adjustments, and managing inflationary expectations. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Get more business news and learn English at voaspecialenglish.com.
I'm Mario Ritter with the VOA Special English Economics Report. Food prices are at their highest level since the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization began keeping records in 1990. The causes include bad weather and growing demand. Some experts also blame the use of food crops to make fuel. But higher food prices are not always the result of limited supplies. Coffee prices have jumped almost 50% in 6 months. Prices have reached a 13-year high. Yet growers expect their current crop to be almost 10% bigger than the last one. J.M. Smucker is an American company known for its jellies and fruit spreads. But Smucker also owns Folgers, America's top-selling packaged coffee. And it owns Dunkin' Donuts, which sells coffee to wash down the donuts at its stores. In February, Smucker said it would raise the prices of its coffee products by an average of 10%. It said the increase is driven by the higher prices for coffee beans. Experts say coffee prices are rising mainly because people are willing to pay more. Coffee sellers, like Mark Warmoth, say tastes are changing and more people want a good cup of coffee. Mark Warmoth owns the Emmy Swing Coffee Company in Alexandria, Virginia, near Washington. He says big coffee sellers like Starbucks help his business by building a base of customers who want something better. He said people are seeking something better than what they can get at Starbucks. They are seeking out smaller, boutique, artisan, craft coffee roasters, like his company. Yet Mr. Warmoth can thank those bigger companies, like Starbucks, for spreading the idea of coffee as an affordable luxury. The thinking goes that during hard times, people might not go on a trip, but they might be willing to pay extra for good coffee. The company supplies restaurants and other businesses, but also has a store in Washington near the White House. Customers pay $13 for less than half a kilogram of beans, about double the price of other brands. Greater demand for high-quality coffee has helped drive coffee prices higher. That includes greater demand among Brazilians. Brazil is the world's largest exporter of coffee. People in India are also drinking more coffee. Starbucks just announced plans to enter that market in a deal with India's Tata Coffee Company. For VOA Special English, I'm Mario Ritter.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Concerns about a double-dip recession were back in the news at the end of June. Some economists warned of the possibility of another downturn if governments withdraw growth measures too quickly. But others warned of the dangers of letting deficits and debts continue to grow. Leaders of the world's biggest economies agreed to cut their deficits by half or more by 2013. They also promised to try to reduce the size of their government debt in relation to their economy by 2016. Western countries have not faced such high debt levels in 60 years. Leaders like President Obama, however, argue that the recession would have been much worse without the spending. At the close of the Group of 20 summit in Toronto, Canada, the president noted moves in Europe to cut government spending. He said, "A number of our European partners are making difficult decisions. But we must recognize that our fiscal health tomorrow will rest in no small measure on our ability to create jobs and growth today." In the United States, stocks have been falling since April on concerns about the recovery. At the end of June, a business research group reported a drop in consumer confidence after 3 months of gains. The Conference Board said more Americans believed business conditions were bad and that jobs were hard to get. New jobless claims rose in the latest government report. Still, employment expert John Challenger says his findings suggest that the nation's employers are not expecting a double-dip recession. He points to a big drop in the number of planned job cuts announced by employers over the past 6 months. Even so, other reports showed big drops in housing sales in May. That followed the end of a homebuyer's tax credit. Congress voted to extend the credit to the end of September, but only for people who signed a deal by April 30th. The House of Representatives passed a major bill to rewrite financial rules and add consumer protections. The bill provides a way for the government to close failing banks. President Obama had hoped to sign a final bill by July 4th, but the Senate delayed action on its version of the financial reform bill until Congress returned July 12th. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report. You can comment on our reports on our website, voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The World Economic Forum is an independent organization. Its job is to help businesses, governments, and civil society groups find ways to work together to improve the world. The 21st World Economic Forum on East Asia recently took place in Thailand. Organizers wanted to bring attention to development in Southeast Asia. The event received extra attention because of the presence of Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese opposition leader, and a newly elected member of Parliament. She traveled to Bangkok in her first foreign trip in over 20 years. Burmese President Thein Sein canceled his appearance at the meeting shortly after her travel plans were announced. Klaus Schwab started what came to be called the World Economic Forum and serves as its executive chairman. In opening comments, he praised the growing influence of Southeast Asian nations in the world economy and in political issues. In his words, "When you look at the ASEAN region, you feel that here you have a region which is full of dynamism." He said the region becomes more and more a crucial factor in the world economic and world political context. Several government leaders were in Bangkok for the meeting. They included the President of Indonesia, the Prime Minister of Vietnam, and the Prime Minister of Thailand. The forum is a place to discuss issues affecting the 10 members of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. In a speech, Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra noted threats like the debt crisis in Europe and climate change. But she also pointed to technological progress, democratic reforms, and new centers of economic growth as signs of hope. ASEAN nations are becoming increasingly important in the world economy. As a group, their economic activity is nearing $2 trillion. Southeast Asian economies are expected to grow more than 5% this year. That rate is higher than Europe or North America. World Trade Organization Director General Pascal Lamy also attended the meetings. He said Southeast Asia is doing better than other areas now, but he warned that a slowing world economy could create problems. He said he would expect the region to be more affected in the 2 or 3 years to come than it has been so far. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Modern microfinance started with economist Muhammad Yunus. In the 1970s, he started what became the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. He and the bank shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for the idea of offering small loans to the poor to fight poverty. In 2010, reports of harmful micro-lending methods and corruption shook the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Yunus recently said in the New York Times have raised questions about whether micro-lending lifts women or poor families out of poverty. David Rudman is with the Center for Global Development, a research group in Washington. He says microloans do not do a good job fighting poverty. He says over $3 billion went into microcredit in 2010. But many lenders failed because of bad supervision or failure to repay loans. In one model, governments or non-governmental organizations give money to microcredit operations. Interest income is often used up by costs rather than helping other poor borrowers. But Giath Naqshbendi says that model is changing. Mr. Naqshbendi says sustainability is now a main goal. He says there has been a move in the last 5 or 6 years to find ways and means by which make these operations sustainable. In his words, sustainable means simply that, yes, we are going to rely on donations, but in the meantime, we are going to encourage these borrowers to save some of their money. Money from savings can then be used for new loans. Mr. Naqshbendi says private equity companies are looking closely at microfinance as an investment. New models are being developed to offer more than business loans. For example, educational loans and health insurance loans. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. For more business news for people learning English, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA.
That things got out of control. He noted that Andhra Pradesh had intensive lending activity at the time. We spoke to Giath Naqshbendi about changes in the world of microfinance. He is an expert in international business and teaches microfinance as a business model at the Kogod School of Business at American University. He says the government of India in certain states has started taking steps to guarantee that these institutions are operating under a strict system. Some experts